Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm so excited that I get to finally say this. I am finally making my Lupus YouTube page. I have been wanting to do this for many years now, but have always found some type of an excuse to put it off. If it wasn't for my health, it was just not feeling comfortable in front of the camera, or just feeling like I didn't have the proper equipment or setup. So I do apologize. I am using natural lighting at the moment. It is cloudy, so the sun will be going in and out throughout the video. And there is construction going on outside, so I do apologize for the extra background noise. But again, all excuses aside, I just need to finally do this and finally put myself out there to share my lupus story with the world. I have had lupus for about 9 years now, so I have a very complicated lupus story, and because of this, I do want to break down my videos into different segments just for clarity and so that you are all able to follow my timeline a little bit better. There's so much that I could say. I want to be as detailed as possible. I want to share facts and resources. I want to give tips and advice. Again, just my overall experience of the things that I have gone through and the things that I'm going through now. So I'm really excited to see how these videos turn out and really excited to see where this leads me. So let's get started with my lupus story. Well, first and foremost, what is lupus? Lupus is an autoimmune disease. And mind you, there are several different autoimmune diseases out there which are a little bit more specific and a little bit more specifically targeted at certain parts of the body. But when we're talking about lupus, we are talking about the overall immune system. So let's take a step back. What is the primary function of the immune system? The immune system is what basically determines our overall health. It is what protects our body against foreign invaders, such as bacteria and viruses, the things that make us sick. But within lupus, your immune system basically is too overactive. So it is unable to distinguish between the foreign invaders and the body's own natural healthy tissues. And in some cases, lupus can be so overactive that it can attack certain organs of the body. So for example, my lupus ended up attacking my kidneys. So unfortunately, I have the kidney disease within lupus, which is called lupus nephritis. My lupus nephritis is basically the bulk of my lupus story, and because of this, I do want to save that story for the next video. I didn't just want to throw it into my intro video because there is so much for me to say with my treatment, the things that I had to go through, the things that I'm struggling with within lupus nephritis. So again, I just want to save that for the next video. I didn't want to confuse anyone. I wanted to keep the timeline really smooth. So please keep a lookout for my lupus nephritis video. So what are some common symptoms within lupus? Lupus does have a lot of symptoms, so I am just going to name the ones that I have experienced or am experiencing. The first one I do want to name is extreme fatigue. I am tired all the time. Sometimes there are just some days where like I'll literally wake up in the morning and I'll still be in bed and I'll ask myself like, okay, when can I take my nap throughout this day? It is so difficult sometimes. Sometimes the smallest task could take up so much energy. And I think extreme fatigue is honestly because within lupus, it's either your immune system is just so overactive that you're just using a lot of your energy, or you're on so many medication in which suppresses your immune system, you just don't feel good. Another symptom that I experience constantly are headaches and fevers. Fevers especially, usually for me it happens at night, and usually they're very mild, like 99 degrees. Sometimes it can reach like 101.2. I think the highest that I had this year was like a 101.4. Usually I'll just take Tylenol and I'll kind of sleep it off, because again, it does usually happen at night. Another symptom that I experience a lot is actually painful and swollen joints. So sometimes I'll wake up and my fingers are swollen. Sometimes so swollen I can't take off my ring or put my ring back on. And stiffness, especially because it's so swollen, it's difficult to move. Another symptom in which I experience a lot is swelling. I especially get swollen in my legs, but that's normally due to my kidney disease. Again, I'll go into more detail with that in my next video. But there are some days where I wake up and my face gets really swollen. I'll notice it a lot in my upper lip and my nose. And sometimes my eyes get super swollen to the point where I just end up calling in sick for work, because it just looks so noticeable and so odd. And sometimes the swelling in the eyes could be so bad it's difficult for me to open my eyes. Another symptom are rashes. I normally get these little bumps on my hand. They come and go. I'm not too sure what causes them. But I do want to mention that there is a very common symptom within lupus, or a rash called the butterfly rash, which kind of sits perfectly across your cheeks and nose. Again, it's a very common symptom within lupus. I have never experienced the butterfly rash, but that's also kind of like the thing that doctors look out for, because normally for people who haven't been diagnosed with lupus yet and experience the butterfly rash, doctors can kind of know right away that, hey, this could be lupus. Another symptom that I experience is photosensitivity. So some people experience rashes being in the sun for too long. For me personally, I get really tired for being in the sun for too long. I could literally just stand in the sun and not do anything, and I can become so tired I'll literally take a nap for like 4 to 6 hours after. Another symptom, I know, I apologize, there are a lot of symptoms that I have experienced. Another being hair loss. So I have experienced hair loss a few times within lupus. The first time around was because of chemotherapy, which again I'll go into later detail in the next video. Raynaud's syndrome, or Raynaud's phenomenon, is another common one that I experience all the time when I'm cold. It has to do with like the rushing of your blood flow when you're exposed to extreme cold temperatures. I apologize, I can't really explain it too well, but your fingers or certain parts of your body will start to feel numb and cold, and for a lot of people, because of this, like their fingers will turn like purple and blue. And then another symptom that I personally haven't experienced yet, but I do want to mention because it's very important, is abnormal blood clotting. So if you ever feel like trouble breathing, because I know of another lupus warrior who ended up getting a blood clot in their lung, again, I just want to mention this because it's really important. So abnormal blood clotting is a symptom, again, in which I haven't experienced, but something I do want to mention so that you are aware of. So those are the symptoms that I could think of for now that I have experienced or am experiencing. So if there is another one that I think of, I will mention it along the line. So now that we got the lupus definition and symptoms out of the way, I want to get started on my lupus story. So I was diagnosed with lupus back in 2008 when I was 17 years old. It was literally in the beginning of my senior year of high school. And I just remember waking up one morning and my fingers and hands were so swollen and throbbing in pain. So I knew something was wrong, and I set up an appointment to see my primary care doctor, who basically did all these labs. I got a urinalysis done, blood tests, and even hand x-rays. And that doctor basically referred me out to a rheumatologist. A rheumatologist is a physician who specializes in musculoskeletal disorders and systemic autoimmune conditions. So that rheumatologist gave me more labs, took a look at everything, and was basically like, hey, you tested positive in a test called ANA, which stands for the anti-nuclear antibody test, which is a very common, like a positive result is very common within those presenting in a condition called lupus. So he mentioned like, hey, you might have this condition called lupus, but I'm going to kind of need a second opinion, so I kind of want you to see a colleague of mine. So he referred me out to a different hospital to meet his colleague, who was also a rheumatologist, who did the same thing, gave me more labs, looked at my results, and was like, looking at everything, I'm kind of in agreement with so-and-so. You may have this condition called lupus. It's an autoimmune disease, which is lifelong, can be manageable, but can also be life-threatening. And I just remember thinking, like, what the hell is lupus? I've never heard of it before. Like, what do you mean lifelong? What do you mean life-threatening? Like, I just wasn't too sure what he was telling me. During that time, I just wasn't too sure how to take it in. So that rheumatologist referred me back to my original rheumatologist, who suggested 2 medications. The first medication being Plaquenil. Plaquenil, another name for it is hydroxychlor or hydroxychloroquine. I was advised to take 200 milligrams, and my doctor basically told me, like, this is basically a very common drug given to lupus patients because it is an immunosuppressant. So basically it calms down the lupus activity and really emphasized to me, like, hey, this is basically a drug you have to take lifelong, but there are some major side effects to it. The biggest side effect that he mentioned was that it could affect my vision, and really emphasized that I get my eyes checked every year. I will say from personal experience, my vision did change within months of taking the medication. I never needed glasses before, and within literally 6 months of taking that medication, I ended up getting glasses. I will say from from the beginning of taking Plaquenil till now, my vision did get worse. Please don't ask me what my prescription is. I don't know. I just know that I can barely see without glasses. I did get contacts about 2 years ago, which I regret not getting sooner. Contacts are freaking amazing, but it's just hard because my eyes depend on it so much. The second drug that I was given was prednisone. So prednisone is an anti-inflammatory drug, which is also considered a steroid. So it is a very common drug given in other health conditions outside of lupus. For example, extreme eczema. I believe I was given about 40 milligrams during that time, and prednisone has a lot of side effects. And because of this, prednisone is only given during times of inflammation. So it's only given within like short month time frames because it does have major side effects. Side effects such as insomnia, which is a little bit more minor. Supposedly it increases hunger, so a lot of people who take prednisone experience like weight gain. Another side effect that a lot of people who have taken prednisone experience is called the moon phase. It is literally the most annoying side effect you could ever experience. It's basically a buildup of fat within your face, and you basically get the biggest chipmunk cheeks ever. Usually you get it on higher doses of prednisone, and when I talk about high doses, I mean like 60 milligrams. And you could barely see the chipmunk cheeks on lower doses of prednisone, which is more so like 10 milligrams or less. And the biggest, actually, again, the biggest side effect to prednisone that I have to mention and really, really emphasize is bone loss. So for those who take high doses of prednisone, especially for a long period of time, may experience bone loss to the point where they could fracture certain bones of the body. So I do know of other lupus warriors to basically experience fractures like in their shoulder and hip to the point where they needed surgery. So for those of you who have been taking prednisone for a long time, especially in high doses, should really get monitored and should really get a bone density exam. Out of my 9 years of having lupus, I've only had one bone density exam, but luckily there was nothing of any concern. But I will be a little bit more responsible in getting monitored with it, again, along the line, especially for the rest of my life. If you could prevent this ahead of time, by all means do so. It is a very big side effect within taking that drug. So if you're taking prednisone, please keep a lookout for that. So I just want to take a step back and kind of go back to how I felt when I was first told that I had lupus. So let me kind of explain the type of person I was before being diagnosed. Again, I was in high school, but during that time I was very ambitious. Like, I was literally class president all 4 years of high school. I did sports, dance team. I was involved in other clubs in my high school. I knew a lot of people out in other high schools in my area. So if I wasn't working hard in school, then I was always hanging out outside of school. Like, mind you, senior year of high school, you just want to have fun. And I was applying to college during that time. So I was really excited to kind of just, have fun in my senior year and go off to college and like become an adult. And I don't know, I think also just being class president, like, I was just too busy trying to like plan homecoming, plan prom, do this, that, raise money. Like, I just felt like I am way too busy to be worrying about a health condition, this thing called lupus and autoimmune disease. And I think also during that time, just the word disease just sounded so icky and like contagious or something. And mind you, lupus is not contagious, but I think that's just how I felt during that time. I was so young, and again, I was very ambitious. I really just during that time was just so hardworking. Like, I literally started working at 15 and a half. I got my driving permit at 15 and a half. I got my license right away at 16. I was like one of the first people in my age group to like get a car. So like I was like nonstop working basically since 15 and a half. Like, I was just really, I really felt invincible during that time. I really felt like I could rule the world, And again, just having someone basically tell you like, hey, you have a health condition, like, it just made me feel like, this strong part of me was being taken away, and I just kind of didn't want to believe that. So I really set aside the idea of having lupus, and I kind of just ignored it and went about my life. And I really didn't take my lupus seriously until about a year and a half later into college, when I ended up developing my kidney disease, because it became really life-threatening and really, really scary. So I, again, didn't believe that I had lupus until I developed the kidney disease portion. So how did my family first react when they found out I had lupus? So let me first explain my family dynamics. I am the only child. My mom is a single parent who worked 2 jobs while I was growing up. So that basically left me to be raised by my grandma, aunts and uncles, and cousins. So when my mom first found out, she freaked out, of course. I think she just felt very helpless, knowing that her only child has to suffer from this health condition. My mom, of course, tried to seek answers and find remedies to help me, get through it. And I just remember her reaching out to my auntie, because I guess my auntie knew of someone to have lupus during that time. And I just remember talking to my auntie over the phone and her being like, you'll be just fine. So-and-so had lupus, but they died from lupus, but you'll be just fine. And I just remember thinking like, oh my God, why the hell would you tell me that? That is so scary. I do not want to hear that. And I just remember hanging up and just crying, because I just didn't want to hear it. It was even more of a reason for me just to want to ignore the fact that this was happening to me, and I just didn't want to deal with it. But I mean, throughout the years, my family has become my biggest support system through it all. They have seen me struggle from the very beginning. They have helped me through like every doctor's visit, every ER visit, every painful episode I've ever had. So my family, especially my mom, is the reason why I stay so strong today, and I do not know where I would be without them, for sure. So how did my friends first react when they found out I had lupus? I think that all of my friends reacted very differently. There were some people, or some of my friends, who were very concerned for me and tried to be there for me as much as possible, but still didn't understand what lupus was. And then there was like another set of friends who understood that I was struggling with something, but didn't want to talk to me about it or even ask me how I was doing. But again, I just didn't really talk about my lupus in the beginning. Again, I didn't take it seriously until I developed my kidney disease, so I wasn't as open in the beginning to even want to talk about it. Again, I didn't become as open as I am now until my lupus nephritis, which was very, very life-changing. And so all my new friends that I met along the line, I'm very open about talking about it. So yeah. So how did my husband first react when I told him I had lupus? Well, I met my husband my senior year of high school. So he actually attended a different high school in my area. And long story short, we met through a mutual friend. So going back to my timeline, I was seeing all my doctors in September of 2008. I was officially diagnosed basically in October of 2008. And then a few months later, my husband and I became boyfriend and girlfriend in May of 2009. But I just remember mentioning that I had lupus actually in the very beginning when we were like talking, because I knew it was really important and it was something that I couldn't hide. And I just remember telling him over the phone, and his response was actually very surprising. He was like, "Oh, lupus? I totally know what you're talking about. My auntie has lupus." And I just remember thinking like, "Oh my God, I'm not the only one." Like, it was just so comforting to know that, you know, he kind of already understood what lupus was, and I didn't have to really explain myself. And knowing that, you know, someone else had lupus kind of gave me a little bit more confidence, knowing that like I wasn't alone. So I just remember, again, talking to him and just feeling more confidence in what I had, but it wasn't enough confidence for me to, again, put myself out there. But it gave me a lot of confidence in our relationship to know that this person understands me and understands like what I'm going through. So yeah. So fast forward a little into 2010, during the time I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis, was also during the time social networking was becoming a really big thing. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I just remember like posting pictures on Instagram and using the hashtag lupus, hashtag lupus warrior, hashtag lupus awareness, and just posting like pictures of like my ER visits and my medications, but more so in a positive light. Like, say for example, if I posted a picture of my medications, I would state like, "Hey, this is my ammunition in this battle of mine. I'm gonna fight this, I'm gonna beat this, I'm gonna stay strong." And I think from these hashtags, you know, other lupus warriors from all over were finding me, and I was getting all these messages, emails, and comments of other lupus warriors wanting to ask about my story more in detail, wanting to share their story, wanting to ask me for advice, and ask me like how I cope. And I just remember getting all these floods of messages and just thinking like, wow, like this is really big. Like, I am affecting lives right now. And it wasn't until I got a message from a lupus warrior from Australia, my friend Kate, who was messaging me, same thing, just asking me about my story. And we were online friends for a couple of years until her and her family ended up going on vacation to Hawaii a couple of years ago. And I was actually living in Hawaii during that time, so we finally met in person. And, you know, every time I think of like our story, just knowing that two lupus warriors from two different parts of the world were able to support each other for many years, and then to finally come together and meet was pretty amazing to me. It's just so inspiring and heartwarming, and it's basically the inspiration for these YouTube videos, because there's only so much I could post and only so much I could do to reach out on social networking. But I feel that you know, doing these YouTube videos will kind of amplify my voice a little bit more so that I can reach out even further and create an even larger community of support within the lupus community. So I really hope that these videos, you know, come out in a positive light and are able to really help those who are struggling with this disease. Again, I just want to create a bigger community of support, because throughout the years, from my personal experience, lupus awareness was just something that you would hear but not really understand. So I really hope that now in this day and age, especially because there's also celebrities out there now admitting that they have lupus. Nick Cannon, for example, has lupus. I know that there was an article a couple years ago emphasizing Lady Gaga to have lupus, but more recently, Selena Gomez came out to the world and stated that she has lupus, and she actually recently posted a picture of her kidney transplant. So for her, knowing that she's a pretty big celebrity is now putting lupus awareness in the spotlight. So I feel that this is like the perfect time to get these videos going and to put it out there, because now we have a platform, and this is really important. So again, I hope that these videos can really be something positive and life-changing. So thank you so much for watching, taking the time to watch my very first ever lupus video. Again, I do plan on posting more. I will be working on the next one as soon as possible. I am such a rookie at this, so please bear with me for all the rookie things that I've done. I'm sorry, I tried my best to avoid my ums and ands. But yeah, I was really nervous. I hope I did well. Again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to my family and friends and my husband for all the support throughout the years. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. So first and foremost, what is lupus? Lupus is an So how did my ferns? I got ferns.